to talk about Spider-Man.
Yeah, dude, we got Spider-Man rolling tonight. So this is what we're doing, guys. A new thing with trilogies and beyond. So like right now, we're doing the Spider-Man trilogy from Sam Raimi. We're just going to talk about everything that we like about it, what we don't like about it, the problems, just all that stuff. We're just going to go in depth with it. And if you guys want to comment on it, do it. Comment on right now. ezmaniac's going to be joining me. And we're going to be doing these at least once a week, but hopefully more if we can fit it in. But if you can't get anything in on the comments or anything like that, and you want to actually join in the show and you just want to comment, or you want us to talk about a trilogy or a franchise, and it's anything that's 3 movies and beyond. It can't be just 2 movies. It's got to be 3 movies or more. So if you don't get to join into the live show, send some stuff to BrassReelBobby@gmail.com, and that might could give us some ideas to just keep going because we're going to start doing this a lot. So anyways, with that being said, the Spider-Man trilogy with Sam Raimi directing, which, he was a famous director up until this point, but this is what really put him on the map, super pop culture. Where were you when Spider-Man 1 came out?
I was oblivious to it. I didn't really realize how big it was going to be. And I remember somebody lent me a bootleg copy of it, and it was terrible, but I fell in love with it. And then that was it. I just couldn't believe how good it was. It was refreshing because the last superhero movie we had was X-Men, and I liked that. But there was too many characters, it felt bloated. But with this, it felt more like Batman. How it should be. Not like Batman and Robin and Batman Forever. It just felt grounded and like it had more stories to tell.
I mean, I agree as far as definitely it felt like Batman. You know what I'm saying? Because when I say it felt like Batman, is it had that realistic, I could feel it and touch it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the CGI at the time was fantastic. It was revolutionary, and the effects that they were using, the camera that was going down all the way through the city.
They literally had that on a pulley system.
Yeah, I don't think they did for the sequels, did they?
They did for part 2 as well, because you can watch the behind the scenes. But on the third one, I think they really went full CGI with almost everything.
Yeah.
And then I think they have since then with the other movies.
Yeah.
But that's kind of part of what made this first movie, awesome, is like you said, that realism. And you felt like that. Now, granted, I will say when the camera was swinging through the buildings and you felt like you were Spider-Man and all that, it was grainy because it was a real camera swinging at real time. So part of me liked that. But at the same time, now our eyeballs are such used to clarity,
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I've got it on. I've watched it today to try and refresh my memory. Does it hold up? Yeah, I think it does. I mean, the only thing that I don't like about it is Goblin's costume.
Okay.
I don't believe that an army would issue a costume like that. Yeah, there you go. That just doesn't seem like a practical army costume, and that's what it was aimed for, wasn't it?
I mean, that's what they said it was going for. And I definitely I remember we saw them on the gliders flying on the same type of glider like that in a little test thing at the beginning of the movie. You know what I'm saying? And there wasn't like that crazy, wacky Green Goblin face helmet that he has that we all know today. It was just the suit without the helmet. But I'm asking you because I don't remember. Was it as pronounced in the suit when it was without the mask? You know what I'm saying? Were the shoulders and everything popping out like that? I really can't remember because I haven't seen the first one in a long time, and I should have.
I was too busy looking at the board that he's floating on, and it's one of the other guys that's doing the test run, like you say.
Right.
I didn't really look or study the outfit that they was wearing.
Because I am curious as if they upped it when he became Goblin, because a lot of times they'll do that in movies. They'll start upping the suit a little bit more throughout the film until it finally reaches its pinnacle moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I am with you, even as far as the mask. I thought it was a little too. I could buy that Halloween mask at the store and put it on. You know what I mean?
It felt very Power Rangers. At the time, and it still does.
That's probably my biggest complaint of the movie, because obviously Willem Dafoe was fantastic.
Yeah, he's great. He's great. I don't think they should have had him in a mask. I think it should have been more like prosthetics. so he could, use his face and emote what he's good at, which is being evil. Like, he's very good at being evil, but hiding behind a mask, I think they made a mistake there.
Well, I mean, so first off, I mean, I have to agree with you about a little bit behind the mask thing. Did you want him to change physical form like he did in the comics? You know,
Yeah,
what
I guess
in,
so.
in the comics,
Yeah.
he would like you wanted more of that.
Yeah, I wanted more of that because the helmet, it just doesn't seem to, it just doesn't hold up. It
So,
doesn't. Who's going to take that seriously?
well, what they were, I mean, I agree, and that's the probably like we just said the main thing that really doesn't hold up with it is that helmet. But I'm not sure that I wanted him to fully go to the change in the facial structure when he became the Goblin, because I feel like that would mean he would have. I guess not, because he did sort of just go back and forth and back and forth. So when he started, like when he would snap between sane and insane, like he'd be by himself in the elevator and he was all,
Yeah,
like maybe that's the transformation to where he would like change his face or something. Because if you look at his face, man, I mean, he can be evil. You know what I mean? And I was trying to
yeah.
find the picture that I really wanted to find of him, and I think I just found it, and I'm going to download it right now, and I'll pull it up here in a second. But I mean, Bruce Campbell was the first one that was up for this. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
So Bruce Campbell was up for the Green Goblin role just because Sam Raimi. Sam wants to that's his best friend. They've been making movies together forever. He wanted to put him in it, but I think once they got it in there, everyone was kind of on the agreement of this might be a little bit too much like Ash being the Green Goblin,
Yeah. No, it was brilliant casting of William Dafoe. I think he did a great job with what.
There we go.
See,
you could see the Green Goblin in his face right there.
Yeah, like it's wasted behind the mask. However, the plot and the story required him to be normal at some times, where he's been a father to Harry and he's going around to Aunt May's, and I don't know if they'd have been able to change in between his face changing and stuff like that. So I kind of understand why they're hidden behind a mask. That way, it was like a secret identity the way all the way through.
Well, I mean, at the time, that's probably one of the things that they had a budget they had to meet, and they couldn't probably go past it because at that time, superhero movies weren't popping. You know what I mean? Like that was still a risk to make that Spider-Man movie. But like you said, with that mask being sort of like goofy, that could have almost ruined it.
Yeah, I think because the story was so good, and I mean, because I've got it on right now, and what I noticed from the beginning was perfect casting of Aunt May,
and Uncle Ben,
and Uncle Ben. That's what I was getting to. Mary Jane. I mean, she gets abused by her dad because of her mother walking out or something like that. It's just brilliant storytelling for a kids movie. Like for that to be going on next door and Peter's witnessing it and she's embarrassed by it. I just love how quick it gets you into the action and you get to see them all, and you can clearly see that they both love Peter very much.
Oh, they super. I mean, and they're so heartfelt. And if you're a fan of the comics at all, you can look up some pictures of comics. And I should have done that of Aunt May, but she looks just like she did in the comics. Like they made the facial structure. Like they found her. You knew that when Sam Raimi saw her, and he was just like, "That's her."
Yeah, it's perfect casting, perfect, and she's good in all three of the films.
And honestly, that's something that you and I were talking about earlier is the heart of the film. And all three of them, even the third one with its flaws, and we'll get to it in a little bit, but all three of them do have heart. They all do.
Yeah, they do. And I think that's what separates them from the new trilogy that's coming out now. Although they're good, they don't have the heart like the Tobey Maguire ones. And I think I'll always have a soft spot for those three movies.
I feel like that there was more heart with Spider-Man in Infinity War and Endgame than there was him in the actual Spider-Man movies. As far as the MCU Spider-Man, you know what I mean? Like you saw more of the compassionate side of him in those parts than you did actually in his own movies.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people gripe about Tobey Maguire seems to be crying all the time. He's he's down in his luck, and he's got money problems throughout the whole trilogy.
See, I don't think that for me, the crying didn't bother me.
Doesn't bother me.
It's how he cries. I think he's a bad crier on screen.
Really?
Yeah, that's just me. Here's the deal, though, dude. I'm a horrible crier. When I start crying, and if I'm like actually upset about something and really crying, dude, I'm terrible to look at. I mean, the facial.
I don't know anybody who's attractive when they're crying.
I've seen some people cry, and it's like, obviously you're not attractive, but like Tobey Maguire when he's doing it, he's like me, just
yeah, I suppose,
sticking out and everything, and it's just, I feel like he's just a bad crier on screen. I don't mind seeing people cry at all, like Adam Driver in A Marriage Story. That was like a cry where I was like, woo.
Yeah.
I didn't laugh at that at all. There's a couple times I was like, oh, Toby.
Another thing I noticed today is Peter does say he'll get the train.
I think I lost you.
Ben says, no, he's still there.
Yeah, there you go. You cut out for a second. But what did you say? You said Peter in the train and I lost you.
Oh, yeah. Right. So Uncle Ben, I've always thought that Peter is somewhat to blame, being selfish, wanting to go to this gig. But it's Uncle Ben that's is insistent on taking him. He's like, oh, no, I'll get the train. And he's like, no, I'll take you. Because I've always thought, this is Peter's fault that Uncle Ben gets killed, ultimately, because of his selfishness, wanting to go to, the wrestling match.
Well, ultimately, Uncle Ben wouldn't be where he was if Peter wasn't wanting to defy him a little bit. So in a way, I guess you could say it is Peter's fault. But to me, the beauty of that story is part of Peter Parker growing up and becoming a man. And part of becoming a man is based on one choice can lead to so many other things and that domino effect. And sometimes the choice is sort of out of your control. And I don't know. I felt like that it shaped him. You know what I mean? We won't have the Spider-Man without that. And I don't think it would have happened any other way. I don't know. To me, I think it's just right. And I don't really put the blame on Peter or anything like that. And I don't look at it that way. I just think it's like, damn, this dude's having a tough set of circumstances. His parents are already dead.
Yeah, I mean, we don't get any of that backstory like you do in the Amazing Spider-Man. That's just, it's done. His parents are dead. And
honestly, that's the way it is in the comics.
Yeah.
Like the Spider-Man thing, the Amazing Spider-Man thing, that there are stories that are written about that in the comics, but they came way later and they were like side stories that weren't really a part of the major narrative. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't need that to have Spider-Man.
No, you don't. I mean, what they did was got 3 young kids and basically casted them right. James Franco, I think he's great in this film. I actually like Kirsten Dunst in these movies.
I like Kirsten Dunst as an actress. I just didn't like her in part 3, but I don't like a lot about part 3. I think that the way they told her to act, and I don't think it was her fault, but the way they told her to act in part 3, I feel like it was a little. Yeah,
I'm not going to blame her for that.
Yeah. Because it's like when you see Nicolas Cage kind of not like in Willy's Wonderland. It's like, I know I can get the Nick Cage I want, but sometimes a director won't allow you to be that way, or they'll tell you to, you know what I'm saying? Like I've seen bad actor or great actors have bad performances in movies, but also the movie was bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's Spider-Man 3. The movie's not good.
I think, I've read about he didn't want Venom in there and stuff like that. Well, when we get to Spider-Man 3.
We will.
Yeah.
Hey, I wanted to bring this up though. Like, you being in the UK, obviously when 9/11 happened for the United States with the Twin Towers, that was a shot heard around the world. Everybody knew about that.
Yeah.
So do you remember anything about a Spider-Man poster being pulled?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I've read into it.
And there was an entire scene taken out of the movie because of it too. Because there was one point where a helicopter was supposed to be caught, like some thieves were like stealing a helicopter, and they get caught in between the web, in between the 2 towers.
Yeah, and that must be like, it must be horrible, like for the director and everything, having to do that after such a big tragedy.
Yeah. Well, but this was part of the poster, and what it was is that you see the 2 towers in the background. You see it in his eyes.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't like you saw a crazy thing. And there were some other advertisements showing the 2 towers in the actual fully back, but this poster goes for like crazy now, dude, because the posters were out and they took them all down and then just recalled most of them that they could, but some of them had already leaked out into people's hands,
Yeah, no, that's sad. It's a sad story. Because it came out, how soon did it come out after 9/11?
It was the summer after.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, no, it's bad. It is bad, and they did the right thing, I think, by pulling it because a lot of people
Sure.
lost. Yeah.
At that point, you can't risk it by doing anything. Um, just showing real quick. I'm not sure that we got Sam Road showing up. Hey, what's
Oh,
up?
that's Sam.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. I wasn't putting that together. What's going on, Sam? Sorry about that. My brain wasn't working. So, anyways, back to Spider-Man. Moving
So
on to part 2, or you got something else you want to talk about part 1?
yeah, part one, Macy Gray hair cameo. You like it?
Oh, yeah. Well, her music was hot at that time, and but it wasn't her main song. What is her main song of the ha da 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 da?
Yeah, she was like blink and you miss it, and they grabbed hold of her and put her in that film, and then like pretty much she was gone straight after that movie.
But it was at the parade right before Green Goblin flies in, and he's about to jump in on the balloons, and we'll meet again, Spider-Man.
How do you feel about the barbs coming out of his, well, like showing you the barbs on his fingers? Not Green Goblin, but on Spider-Man when he's climbing the walls.
So, all right, I'm glad we're sticking on this for a second because that's something that I meant to bring up and I forgot, and you brought it back to me. So that James Cameron had written a treatment and was really pushing to get this movie.
No, I didn't know that.
He was really hardcore, and in fact, it was his idea to introduce the barbs.
Right. Okay.
And it was his idea to introduce the webs being made organically.
Now that is a brilliant idea. Anybody, I don't agree with web cartridges.
So okay, but part of the web cartridges in the stories is also
if you say comics.
Well, listen, I'm just going to say partially the reason the web shooters were there and why they are a part of actually what he does is because it was why he was broke all the time. It was why he could never, because he was always putting all of his money to Spider-Man. That was part of the Peter Parker character back in the day. However, in the comics, they have slightly adapted a lot of that organic webbing because to me, it's like, why would he have all these other things but not be able to produce webbing? You know?
I thought it was brilliant. A lot of people don't like it. They're like, no, it should have web cartridges. And
for me, it's been 50-50. Like I like it with web cartridges and I don't. It just depends on how you pull it off. If you make it work right way for the character that you're using or the specific Spider-Man you're telling in this movie, then whatever.
Yeah, I think it works. It works well with Tony Stark in the MCU. I think, he's got the money to do it. But this version of Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire, I don't believe that he could make web cartridges, and that's just making him way too intelligent. Like you said, what is the point of being Spider-Man if you can't produce your own web? Like, what is it? You just climb on walls? What is it?
Climbing on walls and the spider sense and the spider strength. But the thing in the comics is that he is really smart and he actually creates Parker Industries way later down the road. We're talking like that's more of a recent involvement, but they're wanting to get to that in the MCU at some point. So they are wanting to display to you how genius he is. Because in the comics, he is a genius. That's part of Peter Parker. So again, it really goes either way with me. I don't really mind if they do it or not. They just need to make it work for the character they're telling.
Yeah.
But back to you talking about the heart in the movie and talking about Uncle Ben and Aunt May, and this isn't the specific scene, but when Peter Parker is talking about Mary Jane to Aunt May when she's in the hospital bed after Green Goblin had like attacked her, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yep.
That scene gets me every time, dude. It makes me want to cry when he's talking.
Where she's not Superman.
Yeah, but before that, when he thinks she's sleeping and he's like, she makes me want to be a better man and everything, and he's I don't know, it just the whole thing, it gets me. It strikes me right here.
Yeah. That's the reason I love this trilogy. The heart of it. They're not afraid to show emotion, and I think a lot of people like that. It's not a comedy at all. There's not like a gag every 5 minutes. Is there any?
There are some, but they're more personality traits that make you laugh. It's more like it's not an intentional insert joke. It's like that person's playing that character so well that what that character's goofy thing just did in that it was believable so much that it makes you laugh. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not an inserted funny moment right here. Like with Captain America in Endgame, he's like, "No, that's America's ass." I mean, that's an insert joke. That's
Yeah,
a
and then
insert joke right here.
yeah, and then it'll cut to the next scene, and it's
Right.
like, yeah, that's how the jokes work. One thing I have noticed as well is in all three of the Spider-Mans, in the third act, his suit will be ripped and he will show some of his face. Like it just has to be. But in the first part, he can be getting run over, he can be smashing into walls, and his suit's fine. But if he's fighting the main villain at the end, there's
It's
going to
got to
be
get torn. It's got to get ripped. You're
going to
right.
show that it's really him underneath it. That's what they're trying to do.
Well, and you know what's great is I love that in part one because part one, Sam Raimi, and he did it. He did this in a lot of the movies, but he did such a good job at trying to grab shots from the comics and recreate those visually, but not in a cheesy way. Like for example, in Avengers: Age of Ultron, or even Avengers the first movie, when they do the first shot and they're all standing there in their pose, that's like a splash page shot. Sam Raimi wouldn't do splash page shots. He would try to take specific action shots out of there and recreate those moments to where something would happen and you'd see something real quick and it would just sync up for a second. You'd be like, holy shit. And any comic fans looking at each other all with chills up their back and being like, dude, did you just see that? You know what I mean? He did really cool moments like that. And I just really like that about those movies and Sam Raimi doing it.
How do you feel about the end scene where, you know, he's got to choose Mary Jane or the kids in the cable car?
Well, personally, I would have preferred him make this movie with Gwen Stacy and not Mary Jane because Gwen Stacy was his first love before Mary Jane. And Gwen Stacy is actually in the storyline where Green Goblin Norman Osborn is holding her off on one side and holding the cable car to kids off the other side. But in the story, that's where Spider-Man is able to save both of them. And as he's catching Gwen Stacy with his webs, just like an Amazing Spider-Man 2, her neck snaps. So she actually dies in the comics. And then he goes down a really dark path for a while. And then that's when he really falls in love with Mary Jane. And that's when their whole thing happens. So he took that from Gwen and gave it to Mary as far as the bridge story. Sam.
Yeah, so, because in this one, he says he's loved her before, I don't know, what do you call it over there? The first year of school? He's loved her since then?
The freshman year?
Yeah. So, his whole life he's loved her.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too, is that he meets Gwen Stacy in the third one, and she's just in and out. Like, it was just not like that. She was way more important to his life. And that's something that I wish Sam Raimi wouldn't have done. But who knows, man? It could have been a script that he was working with, and he just had to go with it because Mary Jane is the popular Spider-Man girl. You know, she is.
Yeah, more people, know her name than they do Gwen Stacy.
Right.
Should we move on to Spider-Man 2?
Okay, so Spider-Man 2, and this is where I'm going to say that he really did a good job at capturing stuff straight to the screen in Spider-Man 2. Sam Raimi did, but go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say right from the get-go, like I remember seeing this in the theaters, and it was absolutely ram-packed, and it was massive. Like one of the biggest screens. I've never even been in this particular one, and I couldn't believe it. And I just remember seeing the intro credits and thinking, this is like phenomenal. Like all the artwork that you see as it's going through it and saying Spider-Man 2, and it's got the Danny Elfman score, but it's been enhanced and it's better.
So funny thing about that opening scene with all the artwork is that's all done by a guy named Alex Ross. And Alex Ross is he's pretty much the most famous comic book artist there is out there. And he does nothing but do paint. Like his comic book art doesn't look like comic books. It looks like that stuff you saw at the beginning of Spider-Man 2. It's very, it looks like paintings. It looks like old paintings and stuff.
And it works so well.
Well, again, for us comic book fans that are watching Spider-Man 2 in the theater, his Alex Ross's art is undeniably recognizable, and he only does superhero stuff, and so we're all like, Alex Ross, like there was so much love into part 2, in my opinion, so much heart went into that movie, and it shows.
Yeah, I just remember thinking I love these movies. Like I was so pumped for seeing it. I just thought this is brilliant. Takes a while for it to kick in with the villain, and that's brilliant because it executes it by explaining and building. There you go, Doc Ock with his relationship with, is it Rose or Rosie?
Yeah. So, and I how you had talked about them earlier, so I got something. So this is that dinner scene where they're talking.
Yeah, and I think because of this scene and how long it takes for it to all kick in, like Peter becomes friends with him, even though he was reluctant to, but because of Harry, he has to. And then he realizes that Peter's a nice guy and he's not going to cause him any problems. And his wife's welcoming to Peter and she's asking him how you've got a girlfriend and all that. And it's like, it's just establishing how nice they all are together. And then it all goes wrong. And that's where it starts to obviously become more of a comic book film. But up until that point, where he's building the fusion machine, and he's I don't know why he doesn't just sell the idea of the arms on his back. He's so obsessed with making this fusion machine, but these things on his back, like nobody's bothered by him. Like this is a new invention. It's kind of silly, really, but it's all about him creating the sun and the power of the sun. With no mention of these things on his back, where no one's surprised by them. Like, how do you feel about that?
I didn't mind. Like, okay, so first off, when I'm going into a comic book movie, especially like something Dr. Octopus, I'm like, how are they going to make this work? How are they going to make it cool? How is it just even going to be pulled off at all? And to me, I thought it was kind of clever with the whole, like, the best way to be able to control something like this is with the dexterity of your fingers. But you know, the whole thing using his mind. Of course, there's got to be a better way to control stuff. You know, people use robotic arms and all that stuff, you know, right now, not like on their arms, but like technology to where they can control other arms and you can get it down. But for comic book movies' sake, I suspended disbelief. And I'm like, I think that is a cool reason as to why they got how they would be a part of him. So it wasn't far-fetched enough for me to not buy it, but it was like borderline. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you know, you've got all them people watching in the audience while it's like going into his back and you see it going into his spine. And it's like, it seems to me like he's only done it once. There you go.
Yeah.
Like, they're all watching it. And I wonder if any of them are thinking, like, what are those arms on your back? Like, yeah. You know, like, they don't seem fazed by it.
Well, and also I think it was, I mean, and again, it's a comic book movie. It's in the world where people are already familiar with Spider-Man. You know, if we were aware of what Spider-Man, we'd want to just like dissect him. We would never let him exist, you know, in real life. But this is a world that's letting him just go around and be a crime fighter. But I think Sam Raimi really was excited about Doc Ock and wanted to do a whole connection to, because, you know, they could have made it a suit. They could have made it mechanical arms that he puts on. You know, it could have been like a backpack harness thing, and that could have been it. They really
I'm glad it went into his spine because, you know, it takes over his brain.
Well, and I think that was Sam Raimi's chance to be like, I'm going to put my horror movie roots into this part of the movie. And in this moment, it did feel like a horror movie. You remember, like, his arms are going after all of the nurses and doctors, and the chainsaw even comes up in the middle of the camera. It's like, ring, and it does like a close up. Just like that was his nod to be like, Evil Dead, that's my shit. And he throws it in there. And I thought that was awesome. And I think that was his whole purpose.
The fingernails going across,
scratching and being pulled. And like I said, that literally a chainsaw comes up in the middle of it because they're trying to cut the arms off. And it just, to me, in the theater, I was like, all right, we've already got an Alex Ross in this movie. The first Spider-Man was awesome. And this one's already turned out to be pretty good. And now we got horror movie shit. I mean, I was just thrilled.
Yeah. And I don't even think he's conscious at this time. I think the arms are just doing that all on their own. Like he's just laying on the bed. And
then they all are dead. And then this is when you see this scene, him waking up, and then he realizes they're attached to him. And then he realizes he killed his own wife, and he pulls the Darth Vader at the end of, you know, Revenge of the Sith.
There's a scene in this film which absolutely moves me. And it's the scene where Peter confesses to Aunt May about what really happened with Uncle Ben.
Oh, boy.
And she pulls her hand away as he reaches for her. And she looks at him as in like, you what? What are you telling me here? Like, I just, that scene alone is what makes it good. Because she doesn't just go, oh, it's all right, Peter. You know what I mean? Don't worry about it. You know, she has to take some time and think about it.
Well, it's the first time in his life he's saying that my Aunt May just doesn't let anything slide. Like, she's hurt possibly even more than I am. Yep. You know, and And then again, you can see the pain in Peter's eyes, dude. You can totally see the pain in his eyes. Like right there, he's just, and look, I didn't say that Toby's not believable crier. He's just not a good crier. He's a, ooh.
Yeah, as in like, come on, get a grip.
Yeah, it's just like you just went from 0 to 300, right? Like, you know, like when Robert Downey Jr. cries at the beginning of Tropic Thunder, and they're doing the takes, and he's holding Ben Stiller's fake blown off hands, and he's all,
oh yeah,
spitting everything. That's what I think of.
Yeah, I suppose he is a bit like that.
He's actually in the beginning of that movie too.
Who is?
Maguire is.
So
remember
really?
with the fake movie trailers? And it was with Robert. And it was when they were showing Robert Downey Jr.'s like old school movie because he was the actor, the Australian actor, and it showed him, and it was playing that Enigma song, and it showed him, and it was called.
I'd have to rewatch it. I ain't seen that for a long time.
It was like Satan's Alley, and it was him and Tobey Maguire, and they're altar boys, and then they look at each other and they start holding hands in the church, and then it's like this sexy song starts playing, and it's like Satan's Alley.
I need to see this again.
It's a fake trailer, you know.
Yeah, like the machete one and all that.
Exactly.
Which ended up becoming a real trailer.
It did, which is that's a whole other conversation, right?
Does this one hold up?
Fuck yeah. Yes.
I believe it does as well.
I think it's better than the first one, and I thought it was when it came out, and I still think it is.
Yeah, I mean, for years, people would say that this is the best superhero movie of all time.
Honestly, at the time, I think it might have been. At the time.
My only gripe is one punch and Doc Ock would be knocked out. One punch. And he's punching and punching, and they're fighting as they're falling down the building, and I'm thinking...
Right here on the top, you're right, and Spider-Man's just knocking him. This is the same guy that catches cars, and Doc Ock can take it.
Yeah, that bit doesn't really make any sense, but I can't even say I was a child at the time. But for me, I was like, yeah, this is brilliant. This could really happen. The arms could take over. You know what I mean? Like, but he wasn't superhuman in any way. And unless they could block everything, but they're not. He's landing his punches, and I'm thinking, okay. But I still love the film. The train sequence, absolutely adore it.
Oh, the train sequence is literally just bar none one of the best things ever. You get so, the train's not going to go overboard. You know that because you're watching the Spider-Man movie. It's like they're not going to allow these key people to die. But you're also like, how's this going to happen? But the way you're right, the way it's done when he's catching everything, and their fight's awesome too. The way they're swinging around and he's jumping inside the train and being slung back in the window.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's all was awesome for its time. People had never seen anything like that.
Yeah, I was amazed. Like when it came out, I think I bought, is it the 2.1 edition or something on DVD?
Right, yeah, that 2.1, 2.5, something.
Yeah. With some extra scenes. Like I loved this film. I couldn't get it out of my head. Like now I'm over it. Like it's still a brilliant movie, but it's not the best superhero film of all time. But it's got a special place in my heart. I think because of just how much acting goes on. Even though there is so much like comic book stuff, there's so much like realism, and I don't know, the way they interact with each other is good. I like the dynamics of it all. Like I say with Aunt May, sorry, I've got a pop-up that keeps coming up.
No, it's all right.
Yeah, I think it's good. By the end of it, I think what happens with Doc Ock is what really should happen. I don't think he's going to be redeemed in any way, and he pretty much sacrifices himself, doesn't he? To put it into the water? Is he trying to put the fusion reactor into the water?
Yeah, he's burning it out in the water so it doesn't destroy the city or whatever.
Yeah.
And because it got out of hand, he thought he could control it, and he couldn't. It was starting to become nuclear, I guess, is what it was. And now he's going to be in the next one, in the new No Way Home, in the actual MCU Spider-Man 3.
So are they basically saying he never died?
No, I think it's a multiverse deal to where it might even be another. Because from what I understand, Jamie Foxx is Electro, but he's not going to be that blue color or anything like that. He's not the same Electro. It's like a variant or something. You know what I mean?
Well, what's the point?
Because, I think it's because they're trying to build up to like the multiverse war. They're trying to get to Secret Wars, which is a multiverse war in the comic books. It's a major event in the comic book. Spider-Man's got the black suit on, all that shit. So, I mean, they're just trying to get to that. They're trying to build up to make an event that's as big or bigger than Endgame. I know they are.
I think the video game for Spider-Man 2 was revolutionary as well.
Yeah, and dude, I was going to bring that up. You got to it before I could, but yes, that actually was revolutionary, and that opened up a world for video games in general. Changed the way Spider-Man was handled on games because the swinging had never been like that prior.
Yeah, no, it was a brilliant game. The delivering pizzas, all that. You had so many side missions. It just really made you feel, even though there was so many villains in the game that wasn't in the film.
Now, did you? Oh, well, but that's how video games are. Video game movie adaptations, they have to add more.
Yeah, it was just really good. I just remember loving it.
Did you ever play? Did you ever play the new one on PlayStation?
Which one? The one before Miles,
or either of them?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was playing it with my son today.
To me, I mean, those are the best ones yet, in my opinion. But I've
not played the Miles one. I've played the first one, which is a bigger game, right? I think the second one's a bit shorter, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about like the first one's like 20 something hours, like 22 hours. This one's like 14 hours or something, 12 hours. I mean, but it's just like the other Spider-Man one that you're talking about. I just didn't know if you had played it or not because I think those are really well done.
Yeah, no, they're good games. I like you can do so much in them. You can go pretty much anywhere except for in the water, isn't it? Yeah,
and then he just jumps back out. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I tell you what did you think about him losing his powers?
Brilliant, because it reminded me of Superman 2.
Yes. Now some people said it was a ripoff, but I thought it was more of an homage, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, he was losing confidence in himself. Everything's going wrong for him in this film. Like everything is going wrong. He's so desperate to try and see Mary Jane, but he's got his radio scanner on, and he chooses the moral. He does the right thing pretty much every time, and there's just so many stumbling blocks. Whether it's where he has to go to the play, and he's just a few minutes late, or when he goes to buy a bunch of flowers, and when you're poor and you see that, you can relate to it. You know what I mean? You can see, like, he thinks he's going to get all these flowers for so many dollars, and the guy just gives him one. And he's just like, okay, and he takes that one flower to Mary Jane or whoever it is he's taking it to. And I just think he's still optimistic, even though everything is going wrong for him. He's failing his class. He's losing his powers. I think this is what makes it the best one, because things aren't going right for him. Things start to go right for him in the third one, and we know how that ended up.
Yeah, I'm totally agree with you. I think that's part of Peter's character, is that not only is he an underdog, but things don't go his way. And he just,
in that one,
part of what makes him Spider-Man is because not many people would be able to push through and do what Spider-Man does. But Peter, even without the powers, even without all that shit, still has the character inside of him to do over and beyond the right thing. And that's what makes you love him so much. And if these movies don't have that depth of the character and let you get involved in certain situations, like you just said, all the things with the roses, him only getting one, and all that stuff. If you don't go through those things with those characters in the movies, then all the other shit just doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, and he does get the payoff at the end, like when he finally saves Mary Jane. She knows it's him, and
he tells her, which everybody was just like, oh. Yeah, and he's like, I do love you. And he's holding up the shit, and you're just like, oh my God. Like as a dude, you're getting female like love moments in a superhero moment, Yeah.
He deserves it. He deserves some love. He's working hard, being Spider-Man, trying to, J. Jonah is ripping him off with every photograph that he takes of Spider-Man. And I just think, give this guy a break. And he gets it at the end. She jilts J. Jonah's son, which I think is a bit bizarre, that J. Jonah Jameson doesn't fire him after that. Like, it's
well, because he's freelance.
What happens to him?
Well, but the whole thing, and the reason that he doesn't fire him is because he's a freelance photographer. For some reason, he's the only one that can get these awesome shots of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And that's all he really cares about. He doesn't care about all that other stuff. And then, I don't know if you know this, but in the comics, John Jameson, J. Jonah's son, he's an astronaut, and he's the one that brings the
Yeah,
symbiote back.
yeah.
And he becomes the Wolfman too in the comics. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want that.
No, hell no. But I think another thing that we all love that was huge fan service for the fans is that one of the biggest visual moments in the comics and like biggest selling issues is when when Peter and Mary Jane got married. And so there's this great issue of her running in the comics, running with her wedding dress. And so to see that, even though it's in different contexts in part 2, but seeing her running by the fountain and everything in her wedding dress, it was just such fan service for the fans to get that visual image in the movie, you know?
Yeah.
I loved it.
My only gripe with that scene at the end is the CGI is not great. I remember seeing that part in the cinema when I got it on the DVD, with the helicopters flying when he's swinging through. Basically, he says bye to Mary Jane. She's waving at him out the window. Everything's rosy, and it's about the credits are going to roll. It wasn't as good as the first one,
where he's on the flagpole.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I'll have to rewatch. I honestly can't picture it. To me, it just still looks
doesn't hold up.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a while, and I even got all the Blu-rays and stuff out too, just so I could show you. Know, I got all these bad boys. I got even something else I'm gonna pull up here in a little bit at the end of the show. But I mean, I like I said, I'd have to rewatch to see that CG, but I will.
Yeah, just that scene.
Most of it I do remember holding up well, though. One of the things I really like, though, about things that I thought were awesome as far as him doing the comic book representation, like pages to the screen. So check this out. You remember this? Yeah. You remember when he was dropping it and he's like, "I'm done. I'm done being Spider-Man."
That guy sells it to J. Jonah.
Right. And then he comes back and steals it right from under their eyes.
Yeah.
Well, check this out.
Yeah, that's pretty much perfect, isn't it? Really,
that's beautiful though. Like, see, that's not somebody being like,
that's effort.
Yeah, that's like, let's get this because this is going to mean something to fans, and for all of us, it did, dude. Like, we were just like, this guy gets, because to me that tells me you care and you love Spider-Man. You know what I mean? That tells me you've done your homework.
How did you feel when you saw it for the first time, and the raindrop sequence?
I lost you. I just heard how did you feel when you saw it for the first time?
So when the raindrop sequence, so raindrops are falling on my head, and obviously he's given up his powers, he's eating his hot dog, he's not getting involved with the crime. How did you feel in that scene? Because everybody, it was like a little bit awkward at first. Like when you know the film, it's you know what's coming. But I just remember everybody being like, what's this? Like it's turned into a little bit of a comedy, or it felt strange.
I mean, yeah, I think it did. For me, I think as a filmmaker, you're just trying to not misdirect, but you're trying to make the audience do like this for a second and then give it 20 more minutes. And then you're like, oh shit.
As that song's going through though, you notice Peter's starting to do better at school. Dr. Connor is like going, hey, well done, Peter. And like things are going good for him.
It's all about those choices. With great power comes great responsibility, you know? So it's just all that, to me, that's the beauty about Spider-Man's character, like almost giving up, becoming a formidable contributing member to society outside of being Spider-Man, you know, missing out on so many things. And it's part of why Batman's character is so good and why it's necessary for him to witness his parents' death, because that's what makes him dark and gritty. Spider-Man's not dark and gritty. He just grew up without parents. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so he's got the will to live and he wants to do better. And I don't know. I just think I love the fact that he's like, even though things are going great, I'm not doing the right thing. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And like he feels guilty when he lets that guy get beat up.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a pivotal moment where he goes into the fire to save one of the children. So
no, that's part one though, right?
No, he does it in the second one. I think it's a little Chinese girl or something like that. And he has to do it with no powers. His powers aren't there, and he has to jump.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Because
in the first one, Green Goblin's in there.
Yeah, that's where he turns around and does the whole...
yeah.
Which I love.
That's Sam Raimi all over.
Oh, shit, yeah. And also, man, beautifully cinematic when he throws the pumpkin bomb and all the blades start flying. Yeah. He's jumping in the air, and he's, like, dodging all of them like that. That was amazing.
At the time, that was a brilliant effect.
Nobody had seen that yet. I mean, that was true That was a director being like, I want to do a really ambitious shot and pulling it off. You know,
Yeah.
like now it's like, we'll just do it in CG.
Yeah. No, it's brilliant, that scene.
Yeah, that all and again, man, the petty complaints we're talking about, you know, with like Goblin's mask in the first one, and then just the little things about Doc Ock's arms in the second one, just little things.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
still it's
just take it away.
shavings off of the greatness those movies are.
Yeah. It stops them from being 100%. That's all.
It takes it to 99.9%. You know what I mean? Like it's not
it's
something to where it makes me second guess the movie. Like whereas Don't Breathe 2, there are moments that'll happen where you get it and you're like,
you need to get over that film.
Well, it just is what it is.
Mentioned that film about 17 times today because I watched your live show earlier.
Oh yeah.
You know, if you get a chance, come and watch my Don't Breathe.
Yeah, you know, I got to plug myself.
That's true. What was I going to say to you?
Man, I was about to put up a thumbnail for Don't Breathe, but I already put it out, took it out of here.
Just do it. Just do it. I need to get my thoughts anyway. What did I write here? We've already said that. Yeah, no, we've covered that. Spider-Man 2, it's the best of the three, without a doubt.
Yep, it is. Yeah. And one not being one is a close second.
Yeah, it was lacking a theme song. Like I can hear Chad Kroger now with a hero song. It was lacking that.
At the end of the movie?
Yeah.
Like,
Spider-Man 2 needed a song like that just to complete it. You know, like Mission Impossible 2 had like a great song.
Sure, I know what you're talking about. That really makes it feel like, oh man, I'm still in it for a moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
At the end of Ninja Turtles, TURTLE power, TURT. Like that was great.
Yeah, it was. I wouldn't listen to it now, but yeah, it was.
You listened to it this morning. You know you did.
Right, are we going to do this? Spider-Man 3.
Look, there are good things about Spider-Man 3. It's just not a good movie. Okay?
What makes it bad? Let's talk about what makes it bad. Why is it not good?
Well, first off, the main reason all the way is studio meddling. That's one of the main reasons that it's bad. I can feel it. One, this is the only Sam Raimi movie that I've been like, when I'm done. Do I have complaints about Drag Me to Hell? Yes. I don't think they should have used CG blood and gore in that movie. It should have been practical effects. But the story and me either. But the story and the pace of the film and what's going on is good. It's all there. You can tell it was thought out and all that stuff. That was just a bad technical choice. You know what I mean? But other than that, Sam Raimi's movies have all been top notch. Even if they've been different from each other, they've all been top notch. Simple Plan, The Gift, all the Evil Dead movies, but then, you know, Oz, Great and Powerful. But there's more. I'm just mentioning a few.
Darkman's very bizarre.
Darkman, there you go. And again, it was original and it was bizarre, but it's good. And so this was the first movie I could see, like, I felt like it wasn't a Sam Raimi movie when I was watching it. You know what I'm saying?
Can you remember the marketing for it before it came out? So like the cereals and all the things where you could get toys and do you know what I mean? Like,
you know, I don't, because that was at a time in my life.
I never saw it at the cinema.
I did. See, I was all about seeing movies and everything still, but I was with a girl at that time in my life, and I'd moved to Tennessee, which is a very just interesting part of the United States. And she had gotten me and my brain out of that like world of collecting. All my stuff was in storage and everything. So I wasn't even looking and viewing toys. I wasn't going to get, you know what I'm saying? My brain wasn't in that spot. That was like a 6-month period of my life that I'd regret.
Women can do that too.
Yes, they can. But I definitely do remember, you know, the marketing for the movie as far as the trailers and everything. First trailer they showed the symbiote.
Yep.
And Sam Raimi, he's come out and said, he's like, that movie was supposed to be a Sandman movie and have Green Goblin in it too. That's all it was supposed to be.
Right. Okay. It was bloated. It felt weird.
The studio straight up said, put Venom in there after the script was done.
But he denies knowing anything really about Venom. Like, how can you know Spider-Man so well and not know anything about Venom?
He just wasn't a fan of Venom, and this is the other thing. He didn't know Venom so well because by the time he had stopped reading comics, Venom hadn't really been created yet. Venom was created in the 80s.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Venom is not an old character. So that's the other thing that's crazy about Venom is they wanted to shoehorn him in early in Spider-Man's career before all these other things had happened that didn't really. It's like Venom comes in later in the career of Spider-Man because that's when it was time. You know what I mean? That's why his character was created, because it made sense to create a character like Venom in that time of Spider-Man. For him to come in this early in Spider-Man, not only did it feel shoehorned, but you could tell Sam Raimi didn't understand the character quickly, and you could tell that because of how little Venom's in the movie, you could tell it was put in at the end. And Venom should have front row if he's going to be in a movie. That's how popular that character is.
Yeah, I mean, the visual effects of the symbiote was pretty good. Right,
Actually,
that design is there as well. Why does he look like that as well? Is that because he's come straight off Spider-Man's suit?
So I think that was that's because it was late in the game of them doing Venom, and I think that was the most effective, costly for them to be able to do it.
Right.
Because I mean, we want to see Venom like we saw him in the Eddie Brock or the Tom Hardy Venom. That's, say what you will about that movie, you can't deny that he looks good. I mean, that's the way Venom should look.
Yeah.
Are some of the effects occasionally here and there during the fight scenes shitty? Of course, some of that doesn't work. But what they're going for with that Venom, that's how he should look.
Yeah, I mean, there's a scene in Spider-Man 3 where, like, the symbiote's showing Topher Grace's face, and his teeth are all why are his teeth like that? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Again, I think it's because they didn't have the money or the time, and they were like, "This is just what we have to do."
Just leave his teeth. It doesn't make any sense. Peter didn't turn like that.
Or just keep him like this. I don't want to see this. Like, he doesn't. This makes him so non-threatening. And how about this? How about look at his neck and his chest and his shoulders? That's so fake. He's not big like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he's not. He's quite thin, isn't he?
Yeah. And anyways, they should have just kept it like this the whole time. At least that would have been enough, kind of believable enough. You know what I'm saying? But even then, you can like look at the hands. You can tell those are gloves. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, they're all ruched up.
Yeah, it's like, y'all shouldn't have done this, man. Would y'all? And they just got themselves into trouble. To me, what should have happened with Venom, first off, and we'll get to Sandman in a second, but it should have been just Sandman and Green Goblin's character in there the way he was, because that was the tie-up story to Harry. That was the closure of Harry's story, which I was fine with all that. I really was. But Venom should have been after everything happened with Sandman. So everything that happened with Thomas Hayden Church and all that, his sand thing, this is at the end of the movie. Remember where he's like,
yeah, you know what? I need to be honest here. He is so poorly casted as this role.
See, you don't think he looks like the Sandman?
To be honest, I don't really know, but I get nothing from this actor. Like, I've seen him in so many other things where he's good. You know what I mean? I can't remember his name.
I don't think he does. Thomas Hayden Church.
That's him.
I don't think he does a good job as because Sandman for Marco Flint is supposed to be a little bit more meaner.
Right.
He's supposed to have more of an evil snarl, kind of like he's supposed to be really pissed all the time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've got a list of reasons why this film isn't good. Can I shoot?
Well, what I was going to say, though, I was just going to say this one thing about, like, after all the Sandman story and everything that happened there, after that, the story with Green Goblin and all that happens, he dies and all that shit. What should have happened? And mind you, that I wouldn't have even minded Toby having the black suit for a little while and getting rid of it at the church. What they should have had at the very end, almost maybe even a post-credit scene, as this scene where Toby's walking up and it drips on him. And if they would have ended the movie with this biting at the screen and it goes black, and then we're waiting for Venom in Spider-Man 4, then it would have been fine. And I think the movie would have been a lot better received, and they would have had more time to focus on their original vision instead of having to shoehorn in Venom at the end. So anyways, that's what I was going to say. Yeah,
right. So I watched this today, so it's quite fresh in my memory. So he's just hanging out on a web with Mary Jane, and just by chance, a meteorite lands right next to him with his symbiote. It's just all a little bit too coincidental.
Oh, you can, and again, because they put it in at the last minute.
Yep. You've got Sandman. Then they changed the killer from the first film who killed, and they give a reason for Peter Parker to hate Marco Flint. Is that his name?
Yep. I think it's Flint Marco, actually.
Flint Marco, whoever. But for me, that's insignificant in this film. I hate every scene he's in. He always seems to be wearing the same T-shirt.
Well, that was his uniform in the comics because that's the shirt he's wearing when he became the Sandman. So he's stuck with it.
Right. Okay.
But even then, it's like it's like Freddy Krueger's cousin.
Yeah, he's just so wooden. So yeah, he's the killer of Uncle Ben. Doesn't for no reason as well. He doesn't even get in the car. He doesn't even get in the car. The other guy gets in the car. So he kills him for what reason? I have no idea. He apologizes for it at the end and he forgives him. But why did he kill him? He just says, "Oh, you don't need to do this." Bang. Do you know for what? What did he kill him for? He'd given him the keys.
Well, he even says he's like, "I didn't mean for it to go off."
That don't wash with me.
Hey, look, we're talking about a movie we don't like.
Okay,
sure.
right.
No, I'm with you.
I haven't finished this list. I've got a big one. The news reporter at the end, the English-British news reporter, who's like, "I can't believe she's still hanging on there," and all this. It's just awful. I mean, do you get many British anchors over there?
Dreadful.
Yeah, that's awful. The butler as well. Norman's butler, who says, "Oh, it was his blades." How the hell would he know?
It was his dagger that took his own life. He can barely even talk, and it was just a way to try to shoehorn a bunch of shit in. That part didn't seem like they wrote it and thought it out too well. The movie was
losing his memory, and being nice for a bit, and like I said to you earlier, why didn't Peter just say, "Mary Jane, he's the new Goblin," or "He's got all of Goblin's stuff"? Like, why have they never had pillow talk and said this to each other? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Instead, Peter's out there doing it again by the bridge, in the park. What are you doing?
I like that. I like the way he's manipulating him once he remembers, and he's basically saying to Mary Jane, "Dump him, or I'll kill him," and she's like, "Okay."
No, I agree, and I definitely. I mean, it gets a little Sam Raimi horror movie-ish right there, and I like how that they allude to at the end of part 2 of Harry sitting in the balcony and he's got the green bow tie on and he's all like, all that's super cool, all that's great, and then the way it feels in this one, like you said, first off, if she's breaking up with him and he's so desperate, why didn't he be like, "No, you don't understand. This is what's going on"?
Yeah,
she would believe him. He's Spider-Man. You know?
His arrogance as well. Like, I mean, that I can believe that, when you're on the up, like he is in this film, he doesn't really care for Mary Jane's problem of getting fired from a stage show, because he's like, "Yeah, but I'm Spider-Man and all this, and they love me." And that does happen to people when they start to succeed in life. Some people. So I can relate to that, and she drifts away from him because he's being so arrogant and he's kissing Gwen Stacy.
But see, I don't believe that Tobey Maguire would have switched that far from who he was in part 2. Like Peter Parker's character, like he was not that guy in part 2, and then all of a sudden he's this way in part. I just don't believe it. Just went too far.
That's true, but I suppose if you're a nerd and nobody's ever noticed you, and then people start to notice you, it can have like effects on the way that you.
It can. Yeah. I mean, which is partially why I don't think it should have been in the movie, but like, okay,
he seems too more intelligent to not do that.
Right, exactly. Now, when he gets the symbiote though, and then he's walking down the street and he's all doing all that, and I didn't mind any of that because I thought that he's a nerd. This is what he thinks cool is. So I don't mind that. It's the fucking dance scene that kills me. It's the piano jazz swinging dance scene where he's playing. Now he's like, "Now get this," and he's that's where I was like, "I'm out of here."
Yeah, I mean, does the symbiote bring out the what? Is it like wearing the mask? Is it like that?
For him, yeah, it is. I mean, it's a long story in the comics as far as what it does to you. Eddie loves it because he's a kind of a piece of shit in the comics. Like they make him way too good in the movies.
Oh, sorry. There's one more scene as well. I need to remember this one.
Go ahead.
So when Gwen Stacy, when the crane crashes into the building, And her father is watching from below and he goes, "What's she doing up there?" And I'm thinking, your daughter is hanging by her fingernails off the side of a building. And then Topher Grace turns up and says, "I'm dating her." And I'm thinking, like, what? What if Spider-Man didn't show up then? Like, he would see his daughter plummet. Like, what is the writing in this film?
Yeah, why are you so happy? Why are you so jolly that when your daughter's hanging, it's like, oh, just another day at the office?
Just terrible.
Oh, I agree. Yeah. All of it's terrible, man. I mean, it was just you, but like I said, from the beginning, I don't feel like I'm watching a Sam Raimi movie. I really don't. Part 2 felt it almost felt like it was the second half of part 1. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it flowed.
Part 3 felt like a totally different franchise. It didn't feel the same. It didn't look the same.
Who did the music in the third one? Was it Christopher Young?
I know that it wasn't Danny. Danny Elfman still got credit for the main title because the main theme was in there, but the actual score itself, I'm looking at it right now. Give me a second. Almost there. Man, my eyes are getting terrible, and this is small. Yep, you're right. Christopher Young.
I think I've done that in one of my quizzes. I do quizzes, by the way. Join my channel, ezmaniac.
You know what? I need to get a thumbnail up for you.
So
when you say that, I can pop it up real fast.
Yeah.
We'll do that. I'll get on that next. I could do that. I mean, I could do this right here. This little, see there, ezmaniac. Just type that in. Type in ezmaniac spelled just like that. You'll find him. He's got all kind of crazy shit. You there?
Oh, I've got my own Spider-Man. It's not a trilogy. There's 6 parts to it. I've had it out yet. You still there?
Yeah, you keep cutting in and out.
We're good. We're good?
Yeah, you're cutting in and out periodically.
Let me just turn my fan off. There we go.
Well, and we're almost honestly to the end of this anyways, but wait, I don't know. The thing with Spider-Man 3, honestly, for me, is they tried to tie it up with Willem Dafoe coming back in there and the whole the butler trying to explain everything to Harry. That didn't work for me. It was definitely too much shoeing in Eddie Brock's character at all. Like, they could have just had Eddie Brock in there as he was working at the Daily Planet or the Daily Bugle. He's going back and forth and you'll see him and maybe chimes in. But the whole, just the fact that he was hating Peter so hardcore, and it's like, you don't even know this guy, and like, where'd you come from? I don't buy your hatred. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I don't feel it.
Yeah. I mean, there was one more thing I wanted to add. I didn't understand the dynamic of Harry hearing his dad's laugh. Like, Norman was dead, but he could hear his laugh, and it directed him to the mirror that he throws something through it. And it's like, how's that happening? Like, how does it justify that? I
think that just has something to do with the serum. That's just like the serum's just got effects on him, and it's just making him go crazy.
He's not had any at this point. It was at the end of Spider-Man 2. Can you remember?
I'm trying to. I mean, I do remember because that's what everybody was so pumped up. But you sure? I know we hadn't seen it, but I kind of always thought it as that. Oh, he's already been tampering with the serum.
No, because he doesn't. He finds all the weapon stash and then realizes, like, actually, my dad had all this gear.
Yeah, he finds the pumpkins behind the mirror because he throws stuff and he's all pissed.
Yeah, that's it. That's a very Sam Raimi, like, unexplained kind of scene that people just accept.
Yeah, again, I'd kind of already thought that he was, I don't know, just maybe tampering with the serum somehow. I don't know, because he knew about the serum.
Yeah.
Like, he knew his dad was working on a serum. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Well, it could have been off screen.
That's what I'm saying. It's just maybe he had already been kind of tampering about it. He just didn't know about the back of all the, like, oh, he had this whole arsenal of shit set up.
Unless it was his own inner demons and he's basically feeling like, I don't know, like he can hear his dad. People can hear voices, and I'm guessing this guy could. So, yeah, I accept it.
To me, the only thing that doesn't work about the whole trilogy is I say the only thing, it's a big thing, is part 3. But even then, like, there are parts of it I enjoy. Like, I actually enjoy the Sandman scene where he gets turned into Sandman. I like the dynamic about the son, but I only wanted to see Thomas Hayden Church being all emotional and everything like that when he was with his son. Outside of that, I wanted to see him pissed because that's what Sandman is.
Yeah,
Sandman's mad
he's
about
not
his
like
situation.
that.
No, he's not. He's just kind of somber the whole time. And he's like, you need to leave me alone. You don't understand. It's like, that's not, Sandman doesn't barter and talk like that. He's just out there to dominate. And they didn't do that with him.
And there's a moment where Harry gets stabbed through the chest and Peter's just watching whilst he's tied up. And all he's tied up by is 2 symbiote strands, right? And this is a guy that stopped to train, right? And with his arms.
Well, who knows how strong the symbiote strains are, but we don't know in this movie because they didn't explain shit about it. They just threw it in there. Here it comes, and then there it is. And at least if we get the symbiote attached in the MCU somehow, which they'll probably siphon it over from Venom, they'll probably combine those at some point. Yeah. At least we'll know where it came from, and we'll know why it all started. I mean, we have this whole thing of it now. Like, there's at least a better grasp on the symbiote itself. But
yeah, I can't see him making the same mistakes as they did with this one.
Sony, you never know though, man. Sony almost tried to pull Spider-Man out of the MCU when he was like at his biggest. When Sony had just made their most profitable film yet, they're like, all right, well, we're going to take him out now. We're like, whoa, you guys are kind of idiots here. But then they renegotiate on that very quickly.
Yeah, Disney went, here's some more money.
Yeah, because we need it, and they know it. And again, we may have talked about this, but you know that Spider-Man, the Spider-Man movies, the Tom Holland ones, those are all funded by Disney, and Sony makes all the money. Disney now renegotiated to where they make like maybe 15% of the profits, but it was like a low amount of the profits. And
say that again. They only take 15%.
It might be, they might have negotiated even to like 20 now, but yeah, Sony makes the majority of those.
So they make the money. They make the money back though, Disney. Yeah.
They have other, they don't, Sony doesn't have any of the rights to the merchandise. I don't think Disney still has all that, but as far as box office sales are concerned on tickets, Sony makes the majority of the profit and Disney funds those movies. That's part of their contract.
Right. Okay. So,
but they can use Spider-Man in any of their other movies if they want.
Right. So, like in Endgame, Infinity War, like who makes the money there?
Disney.
Right.
Because part of the contract is that we're able to use him in side films that aren't solo Spider-Man films.
Right. I'm with you. If it's a solo one, then it's like
Sony's then it's Sony's picture. So that's why the Spider-Man movies aren't on Disney Plus.
Right.
So, anyways, but with that being said, guys, thank y'all for joining us. This has been a good time. Been a lot of fun. When do you want to do this again, man? I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Just throwing it out there.
I'm up for this whenever.
So I think once a week for right now is good for me if we can do that. But